So a couple things I wanted to share before sharing my story is first off, I found Hashem in prison. I spent 6 years in federal prison, and this is where I found Hashem. So if you can imagine how much pain and suffering that was, it was like every day. I was thinking about it today. Every day was like Tisha B'Av over there. 2,000 something days that I spent in prison. It was like Tisha B'Av every day. Another thing that I was thinking about today is that, we have this day, and it's an opportunity for us to mourn the fact that we don't have the temple, we don't have Mashiach, and even more so than that, we're lacking that strong connection to Hashem. That's a very sad thing. Even sadder than that is when a Jew doesn't even know that he's lacking a connection with Hashem. And this is the story of my life. This is my story. So I'll go all the way back to the beginning. I was born in Englewood, New Jersey. My father's from Israel, from Tveria. My mother, she's Ashkenazi, Russian, Hungarian, born in New York. There was no mention of Judaism in our household. There was no mention of Hashem in our household at all. It was we were living like completely secular. At the age of 5 years old, my parents got divorced. We all, as a family, still moved to Las Vegas. And being in a divorced home, that was something that was very stressful on my young soul. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to deal with it. It came with a lot of anger. This became my exile in a sense at that time. Very traumatic. But Baruch Hashem, at the age of 8, 9 years old, I found something that I call my first love, which was football. Started playing football every single day. And I ate, slept, and breathed football. And it got to the point where I was playing so well that is that anybody a football fan over here? I was looked at by Randall Cunningham. He's an ex-professional NFL quarterback, and he saw me and he said, "You're playing quarterback, you have a sincere opportunity to make football a profession. You can go to the NFL." So I started training with him, started training very well. Mind you guys, like I said, there was no Judaism, no Hashem. The only thing that I did up until high school was I got a quick bar mitzvah, and I couldn't wait to take my kippah off and just get back to my regular non-kosher lifestyle. So now that I went into high school and it was time to pick a high school, because high school football is very important, it's very serious, I went to a Catholic and Christian school called Bishop Corman High School. My father was very upset that I went there because I had to wear a cross on my shirt every single day. We're learning about all this Catholic and Christian concepts, praying in these services once a week. It was something that's very dangerous for a young, vulnerable boy who's not religious at all. But all I cared about was football at the time, so that's what I did. So I went there. I was playing very well, and usually I usually speak to a lot of teenagers about if you make one bad mistake in your life, it can change your life for the rest of your life. And that's something that happened to me, even though I was playing so well. At 16 and a half, after a game, I went out to a party. I went out with some friends, first time ever. My mom was very strict. She didn't want me to go to parties. And I drank and I smoked a cigarette for the first time. And I was instantly hooked to that life. That one mistake ruined my life for 10, 15 years to come. I just didn't even realize it at the time. So after the weeks going forward, after my football games, I would go out, I would drink, sometimes blackout, sometimes it was a mess, absolute mess. And those weekly drinking turned into daily drinking and daily drug use, to the point where after about a year and a half into this partying lifestyle, I'm a full-blown drug addict. I'm doing drugs every single day from the second I wake up in the morning till I go to sleep at night as a 17-year-old kid. And because I was playing so well on the football field, I thought it was okay to keep doing that. But it wasn't. So finally, going into my senior year, I told myself, this is the most important year of the season. The college scouts are going to come look at me. I need to really tone it up to make it to college and to make it to the NFL. And out of nowhere, I can't explain where this thought came from, but obviously I believe it was Hashem coming into my neshama at the time. Out of nowhere, I prayed to God and I said, God, please give me a good football season and I'll stay away from the drugs completely. So the first 3 games of the season, stayed away from the drugs completely, quick, cold turkey, just like that, because I cared so much about football. And the first 3 games of the season, I threw 1,100 passing yards, 11 touchdowns. And it was like Hashem was holding up his end of the deal. The Thursday before the Friday game, the 3rd game of the season, a friend comes up to me and he says, Sean, let's go out and do some drugs. I didn't realize how bad my addiction was at the time. And I didn't really think about the prayer that I said to Hashem. So I went out with my friend. The next day, I was sitting in my class, and they called me up to the office for a random drug test. And mind you, a random drug test could never happen, but it just so happened there. And that was like the first time where I really felt Hashem in my life. So after the drug test, the following week, they called me into an office. The coach, the principal, and I think it was the dean of the school was there. And they said to me, Sean, you failed a drug test. This is your 2nd time getting in trouble. I had some other troubles the year prior. They said, your career here is over. That's it. We're kicking you off the football team. And if anybody can imagine what it is to love something so deeply, something that you spent 10 years of your life trying so hard to accomplish, and just for it to go just like that, that's what happened to me. I was completely devastated, still I was heartbroken about it. Still to this day, it's painful to talk about it. So knowing what I know now today as an adult, when you make a mistake, there's always another way. You can always go through a different door. You can always find new opportunities. I could have made it to the NFL a different way. But what did I do? I got deeper down into the drugs, and I got deeper down into the criminal activity. Now for the next 2 years of my life, I'm on 5 different drugs every single day. As an 18-year-old kid, I dropped out of high school. And not only that, because that wasn't enough, I started stealing. I became a thief for the next 2 years of my life. And what we know is one thing leads to the next. Drugs, then stealing, and then selling drugs. I went out and I bought my own protection because somebody tried to rob me one night. And because I had protection, I went out and I started robbing people and burglarizing homes. And it got to a point where August 25th, 2015, I went into 7 convenience stores and I robbed everybody at gunpoint. I was arrested that night on the way home. The cops pulled me over, put weapons to my face. There was 10 cop cars screaming at me, put me in the back of a cop car, handcuffed, a 20-year-old kid. And when I finally went to the jail, they put you in a holding cell with all these other criminals and drug addicts. And when I finally came down from the high of not just that night, I've been high for the past 3-4 years, I was scared to death. I'm just a 20-year-old kid. I'm not a criminal. Thank God, 2.5 weeks later, the judge let me out on bail because he looked at me and he was like, there's no way this kid just did all these things. So he let me out on bail. He put me on an ankle monitor, and I fought my case for the next 9 months. But because I had a weapon in my case, I was for sure going to do at least 7 years in prison. And I was facing with armed robberies 20, 30, 40 years in prison. So after 9 months of being on an ankle monitor, I was drinking every single night because if anybody watches prison shows and sees what goes on over there, somebody told me to watch a prison show one day, and I watched it. The first episode was really bad, so I was having nightmares after that, and I couldn't sleep, so I would drink every single night. Eventually, my mom saw how bad I became again, even after all this that happened, and she said, Sean, you're definitely going to have to do time. You need to turn yourself into the jail right now and start your time even though you weren't sentenced yet. Start your time. That's how it works. You start your time as soon as you go back to jail. So this was a Thursday that she told me this. The following Tuesday, I went in just like that. 21 years old at the time, surrounded by criminals. It's the scariest place that you could possibly imagine, right? For a young boy who doesn't want to be involved in this type of behavior. But that's where I got myself. So finally, I'm sitting in the jail, and I said to myself, after, thank God, the judge sentenced me to only 8 years in prison. I say thank God, but it could have been much worse, right? Because we made a whole case that I was just a good kid and I made mistakes. They gave me 8 years in prison. So after I was sentenced, I went back to my cell, and I said to myself, I don't want to be a criminal anymore. I don't want to be a drug addict anymore. But I don't even know how to do that. And now that I'm in jail, the worst place possible to rehabilitate, how can I do this? When I get out one day, how am I going to be a healthy, positive person? How? I have no idea. So another thought came into my soul that it would be Judaism and that it would be through connecting with Hashem. Didn't know how to do it. So I was leafing through, you guys are familiar with the Aleph Institute? Anybody know them? Yeah. So the Aleph Institute, if you don't know them, they're a prison organization that helps all the inmates, Jewish specifically, all around the country. They're even the world, actually. So they send out these magazines every couple months, and it talks about the Jewish holidays and this and that. So I'm leafing through the magazine. It said that a Jewish person is supposed to say the Shema in the morning and the Shema at night. I have no idea what they're talking about over there. That was my level of Judaism. But it said in the magazine that on Yom Kippur you could fast from this time to this time. So I said, okay, this is how I can commence my Judaism, Yom Kippur. So I fasted on Yom Kippur. After the fast, you guys might get a giggle out of this, but I broke the fast with like a pork and cheese nacho bowl. And mind you guys, like I said, there's all these criminals and gang members in the prisons. So I'm sitting down eating this pork and cheese bowl, and a neo-Nazi with a swastika tattooed right on his forehead comes up to me. He sees me eating the pork and cheese. He knew that I was Jewish. He looks me dead in my eye. He says, I don't understand you Jews. You fast and you pray, but you eat non-kosher. You're a hypocrite. He was the first person to ever tell me that I listened to that I was a Jew. And it struck my soul just like that. And I knew in that moment that change was imminent, and I felt Hashem working in my life. But still, I didn't know how. How do I learn the Torah and learn about Hashem? I don't know how. So after that incident with the Nazi, I was transferred from a Las Vegas jail to a California prison. When I got to the California prison, I was told that there's Shabbat services Friday night, Saturday morning. I didn't go Friday night, I went Saturday morning, and when I went in there, I was shocked. There's one guy, an African-American guy, tattoos all over his body, all over his face. He has a talit, and he's praying with a lot of intent. And I'm like, what's going on here? First of all, I never really saw too many people praying growing up. And then I didn't know that we come in all colors, right, as Jews. So I introduced myself to him. He introduces himself as a deer. A deer in Hebrew means mighty. He had it tattooed under his eye to cover a gang tattoo. And he told me he was given 56 years at the age of 17 years old. He was in prison for the last 21 years since I was born. And he still had another 30 years left in prison. He was 39 or 40 years old. And just like the Nazi, and just like how the Nazi told me that I was Jewish and nobody could ever get this into me, Adir told me, you're a Jew, you need to start eating kosher and you need to start putting on tefillin every single morning. And because I looked up to people like that at the time, I listened. So the next morning, I started putting on tefillin. He starts explaining to me about the OU, the Circle K, this and that. I started eating the kosher to the best of my ability. And now, not only did all the criminal activity and all the drug addiction and thinking just leave my system completely, I wanted so badly to learn what it is to be an Orthodox Jew, to connect with Hashem and to learn the Torah. But I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't know how to get to it. So my mom used to come and visit me, and she would always say, Sean, I'm happy that you want to become Orthodox. Thank God, because I know a lot of Baal Tshuva parents, they have a tough time with it. But my mom was very happy. And she said to me, there's this prison in New York. It's called Otisville. And there's this guy over there named Rabbi Rabashkin. You guys know Rabashkin? Yeah. And I'm like, who's Rabashkin? I don't know who this guy is. He's some guy in prison. Like, I'm good. My mom told me you should try to transfer to New York because they have 20 Jews over there. Rabashkin's there. And you'll be living like a real Jewish life. But I said I didn't want to be too far from her. I was in California. That was in New York. And it was too cold in New York. That was my excuse. So I said, I'm okay where I'm at in California. I'll figure out how to learn the Torah here. But an incident happened to me where I was beat up in the California prison. I was part of a program called the Brave Program, 7:30 in the morning till 10:30 every single day, 5 days a week. We would learn about changing our attitude so that we can change our actions. One day, the lady who ran the programs, we're in a unit about this big, maybe twice the size, and there was TVs all over the unit. She turned off all the TVs. And one thing you don't do in prison is disrespect inmates, especially with their TVs. They take their TVs very serious. So she turned off all the TVs, and all the inmates got together, 150 guys, and they said, She disrespected us. So tomorrow for the program, we're staging a walkout. We're boycotting this program. So the next day, everybody walks outside. I was the only person to stay inside. And because of that, I was surrounded by inmates. They wanted to beat me up, all of these guys. And when they beat somebody up in a place like that, it's really bad. They can send you to the hospital. They can even worse than that. But they said to me, you're a prison rookie. You're 21 years old. You made a mistake. We're going to give you a discipline. It's like a beating discipline. You have to hold your hands up for 23 seconds, and 2 guys have to punch you in the stomach as hard as they can. So after that incident, I called my mom. I didn't explain to her what happened because the officers listened to the phone calls. But I said to her, listen, I want to try to get to New York now after that incident. And she got on it with the Aleph Institute. The Aleph Institute got on it very quickly. They're amazing. And I was transferred in a month. I had to take a plane. They have this thing called Con Air. 150 inmates go on a plane. They're shackled up. They took us to Oklahoma City, spent 2 weeks over there, and then they took us to Brooklyn, spent 2 weeks over there. And then I finally was transferred to Otisville. And when I went to Otisville, there was this feeling of like I hit a cloud. I can't explain the feeling of what it was to be there. And when I finally got there, I walk in there, you see Jews with kippah and tzitzit. You see another Jew with a kippah and tzitzit. It looks like I'm in yeshiva or kollel over there. And I went to Mincha, the first prayer service that I've ever been to in my life. I saw how fast it was going. There was about 20 guys in there, 15 religious guys. And then I finally met Rabbi Rabashkin. I met Rabashkin in 2017. I believe it was in August of 2017. And when I met him, in this dark place that he was in, he had an aura of light around him that I also cannot explain. I went into his room. He showed me, he had a huge picture of the Rebbe on his wall. And we put tefillin on, we said the Shema. And for the next 4 months, until he was released, you guys probably know the story, we learned every single day Chumash with Rashi and Rambam. And he was one of the biggest catalysts for me to become more and more religious. There was something about being around a person like that, not just learning from him, but it was amazing just to be connected to someone like him, to the point where when he was released, I was depressed. Everybody else in the world was happy. I was the only one depressed. So after he left, for the next 4.5 years that I spent in prison, it was literally, like I said, yeshiva for me. I was learning all the Gemara and Musar, everything, Hebrew, everything. I threw off all the non-Jewish things, music, TV. I threw everything off. I just threw myself all the way into the Torah completely. And I just want to share one last quick thing with you guys, quick story. While I was during COVID, April 1st, 2020, obviously you guys know COVID was very bad. A lot of people were getting sick, a lot of people were dying, and they were locking down the whole world. COVID in prison was 1,000 times worse. April 1st, 2020, they did a nationwide lockdown. All the inmates were locked down for 2 weeks. They say, COVID is bad, we're going to put you in your cell, solitary confinement, only getting out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to take a quick shower and a quick phone call. That was it. 8 by 11 foot cell. After 2 weeks that I'm stuck in the cell, I'm losing my mind. I can't take this. It's not normal for a human being to be stuck in a place like that. After the 2 weeks, they put a piece of paper under the door. They said, COVID's really bad. You're locked in another 3 months. After 3 months, another piece of paper under the door. Another 3 months you're locked down. And mind you guys, I'm in New York. The news over there is going crazy. They're telling us COVID's like the apocalypse over there. I'm thinking I have 2 years left in prison. How long am I going to be in solitary confinement for? Getting out 3 days a week to take a shower. No sunlight, no fresh air, nothing. Couldn't take it. So after that the second piece of paper came under the door saying that you're locked in another 3 months. I was already in there for 3.5 months. I was completely devastated to the point where I'm walking back and forth, so anxious, so angry, all these emotions that I can't deal with. I'm losing my mind. So I finally took my siddur at night for Mariv, and I faced my door because I didn't want my roommate to see me. But I was bawling my eyes out. I was crying to Hashem, and I said, Hashem, I know that we're not getting off this lockdown. The piece of paper clearly says that. but please give me strength to deal with this darkness, deal with this pain right now, because I'm losing it and I don't know how to deal with it. So that night, just like every other night, I went to sleep depressed, scared. Woke up the next morning, it was Shabbat. I ate the second meal of the day, and I'm walking back and forth, and I finally sit down, and I had two amazing, beautiful thoughts that these are thoughts that I take with me today, and I want to share with you guys. The first thought is that I realized that I'm exactly where Hashem wants me to be. I've just been learning about Torah and about faith and about trust in Hashem the past 3-4 years of my life. Now that it was time to apply this faith and this trust, I'm not exempt from that. I realized in this moment that I'm exactly where Hashem wants me to be. If He wants me in the prison cell, I'll be in the prison cell. If He wants me home, I'll be home. I realized that. And with that thought, I had a little bit of a smile on my face. My soul lit up a little bit. And the second thought that I have is that we have this today in the secular world. We have this concept of manifestation. How we as human beings, people believe this very strongly today. That not even thinking about Hashem at all, that they believe they can create their future. If they think about it enough, that they can manifest their future. They can manifest $1 million or whatever it is. And that's what I did while I was locked down. I manifested that we were going to get off of that lockdown. I put everything into it, all my hope into it, that we were going to get off the lockdown. And when they put that piece of paper under the door and it said the opposite, I was devastated. Why? Because I put my trust in something other than Hashem. And I realized that we cannot expect anything in the future other than what Hashem has for us. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, even a second from now. So with those two thoughts, I was able to get through the rest of the lockdown. We were locked down a total of 6.5 months. I spent another 1.5 2 years in prison. If somebody got sick from COVID, they put us in the cells again for another 3 weeks. So if anybody started coughing, we'd always tell people to keep your cough down because they're going to lock us down. So after that, two more years in prison, I finally got out. I was put in a halfway house for a year. And I made it on this thing called the Meaningful People podcast. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. It's like a big podcast in New York. And it gave me the opportunity, once I got onto it, it kind of blew up a little bit. It gave me the opportunity to speak, especially to young kids who are struggling with drugs and all the things that kids struggle with today, because a lot of kids are struggling. And just like I said in the beginning too, the saddest thing is not even knowing that you don't have a connection with Hashem. And that's what happened to me. And Hashem took me by the neck, and I perceived at the time that losing football, losing out on my life, losing my freedom was the worst thing that could ever happen. Like I said, every single day felt like Tisha B'Av over there. It was painful, suffering, traumatic. But it was through that I'm able to smile today, and that I'm able to truly feel free, because I try my best every day to connect with Hashem. And so I hope that we can see that the darkness is the way to the light. And I appreciate you guys for having me here, and I pray that everybody releases from their own exile and that Mashiach comes soon. Yes.